emergency time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special 2 p.m. matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobbuler's got to unmute that microphone, of course.
Hola, amigos y amigas.
Russell just brewed some coffee and forgot to put the coffee in the coffee maker, so he brewed some hot water, so he had to do it again. So he was about 10 seconds late. But you did pretty good, all things considered.
I did pretty good.
Not too bad. Not too bad. All right, folks, no small talk today. Down to business for very good reason. We have a big announcement from the Jose Vega campaign. This is the first anyone's seeing of this video here, so we're going to go to Jose.
All right, so people have been asking for an update on the campaign and the petitioning, and I have one for you. The truth is, we are at our petitioning goal. We set out with a goal, and we met that goal. But we're not done petitioning. We're still petitioning. We have about a week and a half left until we actually have to hand in the petitions, and we're still going. Therefore, we're going to be out every day, and on Saturday, I want to do one more big rally to get as many signatures and petitions as we can. Now, before I continue on with what I have to say, none of this would have been possible without you. Everybody who came out, everybody who donated, everyone who supported us online and supported us in person in the Bronx has created an atmosphere in the Bronx where people now recognize us, they recognize me, they recognize the campaign, and they are getting people to talk. Some of you flew out for my campaign from places like Missouri and Ohio. Some of you took work off for weeks just to petition for me. That is something that I will forever be eternally grateful for. The things that people did to make this campaign work. It's truly, truly grassroots. And that is something that Richie Torres nor IPAC can ever understand. We are truly funded by you. We are powered by you. We are not funded by Israeli Zionist money. We are not funded by IPAC money. I'm only beholden to people like you who support the campaign, who support the truth, who are trying to fight for a free Gaza. So now I've been visiting the encampments around New York City and in New Jersey. Today I'm at Rutgers University. I tried to visit CCNY yesterday, but that place is locked down like a fortress, as is Columbia. They are trying to squash the movement and the momentum that has built up, that started in New York City, that has spread across the country, and now to all the continents around the world. So the question is, what is next? And that's what I'm calling for. I'm calling for something more to happen, for something to continue, to keep the momentum and the movement going. What that looks like exactly, I don't really know. But I have faith and I trust that the students will keep the movement going and something will happen, a ceasefire will happen, and peace will break out if we decide it should happen. And so with that, that's our update for the day. That's where we are with the petitioning, and that's where we are in the country. So stay tuned, support us if you can. That is something that we have over Richie Torres, which is solidarity and humanity.
So there you have it. Big news from the Jose Vega campaign. Jose Vega has secured enough signatures to be on the ballot in November. How do you like that, folks? Round of applause for Jose in the chat. And let's give him a little headbang here. 1,000 in the YouTube and Twitter chat, 731 on Rumble. Go one more time.
Now, the weird thing is Jerry Seinfeld's wife donated.
Yeah. Well,
we never saw that coming.
We'll have to confirm that with the man himself, who joins us as a surprise guest this afternoon. Candidate for Congress, New York's 15th District. Our friend Jose Vega is here. Jose, what's going on?
What's up, man?
Yeah, sorry. I took Seinfeld money. I took all kinds of money. You know, we have to make this campaign work. No, for purposes, that is a joke. We did not.
You're in the pocket of Big Seinfeld.
Yes. No. We got our first FEC report filed finally, and the information came out. People can see this publicly. You know, $20,000 between the day we started and April 1st, and then you have Richie Torres, who's raised about $8 million. So, yeah, it's quite a.
You got them right where you want them.
Right where you want them. That's right. But
right.
Hey, look, this is our sort of first post-duopoly campaign that we have tried to help out, and you obviously benefited from the infrastructure that Diane Sayre built out from her Senate run. When you first told me the goal, 10,000 signatures in 10 days, I was thinking, that's awful ambitious. I didn't want to be discouraging, but I'm like, I don't know. But you know what? My mind was changed pretty quickly when I showed up, whatever that day was, April 20th, because I saw you had a big team there who were very competent. You had a few ringers there who were just racking up page after page after page of signatures. And I'm thinking, no, he's actually going to get there, and you did. So super exciting news. Barring any unforeseen act of sabotage and fuckery, you are on the ballot in November. So that's huge. That's massive. That's a massive step, because now that bureaucratic process is almost over. I understand you're going to be hitting the streets a little bit more because it's good campaigning anyway, but has to be a huge relief to get this out of the way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it absolutely is a big relief to get out of the way. But like I said in the video, we're still going. We're still going to keep pumping the numbers, because you can never be too sure. You can never be too safe. I mean, I think part of the reason why also we're still going, and I do want to make another push for Saturday. People should come out on Saturday and get petitions with us if they want to be a part of this historic effort. Is, you guys seen this thing with Alex Karp of Palantir, the CEO of Palantir, who came out and said that if we lose the intellectual debate, we may never be able to deploy the military again.
Yes.
Not only are the campuses an expression of that, but I think this campaign has also kind of latched onto that as well. Because this is truly a grassroots campaign. We don't use Act Blue here. Okay. We use our Stripe payment gateway. Okay. And we do this thing all of ourselves, right?
Big Stripe.
Yeah, exactly. So, and people should, of course, donate. And if people want to come out on Saturday, they should contact the campaign. I'm not making the location public this time like we did last time, because, with the campuses and the police kind of, sweeping everything, we want to be a little more safe and secure, and we want to limit the risk also, like you said, of all this fuckery happening where they're going to try and get us on some technicality. So if you've already
well, the good thing about you running in New York State, and New York City in particular, is the New York Board of Elections is known for its unimpeachable integrity.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I should have more faith in the Board of Elections to not try and get
Well, you were telling me the other day, that the window of days that you have to go in and submit your signatures is May 25th to 28th, right? Which sounds like 4 days, right? But when you look at the calendar, the 25th is a Saturday, the 26th is a Sunday, the 27th is Memorial Day, so that's a holiday. So will not be there. So really, you have 1 day. You have to be there on the 28th. Now, you think a pro-democracy state like New York would shift that so that you have 4 weekdays to get it there. Instead, 3 out of the 4 days that you have to submit the signatures are non-business days.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, to be fair, it's actually the 24th, so you can do it on that
So you have
Friday.
two. Okay, my mistake. All right, good.
Friday, but still, right? Still, you only have 2 days to
Right.
actually submit the they yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, that's just another trick that they have up our sleeve. Oh, and that also too, by the way, as to what day we'll be handing them in is also kind of a mystery. We haven't decided yet if we want to make the day public or not. So people, if they want to be updated, they should come and sign up on the website to be the first to know. Um, and I want to make the point, which is that, you know, a small group of people can actually have a pretty big change. Like, seriously. Like the other day, I was at a bodega in the Bronx. I won't say where because I don't want any harassment going on any specific store owner. But, you know, I walked in with one of my staffers and we got our coffee and my Monster Energy. And he says, "Oh, you're Jose Vega, right? Yeah, yeah. They were talking about you, my other shop up in XYZ place. I really support what you're doing, man." And so he bags up the coffee and drinks. He says, "Cool, man. Take care." Doesn't even charge us anything for it. Just lets us go. Like, that's what I meant when I said we've created.
It's a little soon to start taking bribes, Jose. You might not want to talk about that on the air.
But you get what I'm saying. Or like I signed up a lady the other day who said, "Oh, my girlfriends were talking about you. Yeah, they see the people wearing your hats. Yeah, are you good? Are you one of the good ones? Should I sign this thing?" Right? There's discussion, there's commotion going on, and that is all because of the people who came out and petitioned. Right? You know, getting the name out there, getting the branding out there, and getting the ideas out there. Right? We're building something here slowly, going over and over and over and over again. So I really want to emphasize that a minority of people have the ability to create big effects and big waves. Sometimes you can't even measure it. So, you know, we are scaring the crap out of Richie Torres. I mean, and it's going to come down hard. I don't know what the slanders are going to be, but they're going to come, especially when we get confirmation on it. Yeah.
Well, at around that time, we will be doing a fundraiser for you with Jimmy Dore in the Bronx. So you're going to make a speech. Jimmy's going to do a comedy set, and then you and I and Russ and Jimmy and whoever else he can get to come. We're going to do a sort of panel after the comedy show, and that's going to be June 6th in the Bronx. I don't think we have exact details yet, but will you make those details known through your site? I'm assuming a big blast is going to go out about that.
A big blast will go out, and Jimmy will also announce it on his show too.
Yeah, so make sure you guys are signed up on the website for updates, votevega.nyc, because if you're in the city, if you're in the area, you're going to want to come out to that fundraiser. That is going to be quite the time. Quite the time. And that's going to be in the Bronx. Sorry, I'm stalling while I find the goddamn thing. Here it is. Votevega.nyc. There it is.
No,
He's playing for time.
Yeah. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great day. People will be optimistic. And just one more thing, which is I wanted to announce also, people may have seen this. I put this up on my Twitter. I put this up on my site, Bronx Freedom Summer. You know, Hochul said this thing that kids in the Bronx don't even know what a computer is. Like, what a total. So we're launching a summer.
Well, you got to play the record player for them so that they know what a computer is.
So I'm calling for there to be a creation, which I'll hopefully be involved in, of a summer program, which I have a lot of experience doing. I've run New York City summer programs before. I've been in them and I've run them. We're going to be doing a whole, this in the summer. And we are looking for people who have experience in running summer programs, who can donate and help us get the supplies and materials needed, people who are willing to work on the ground, because that's going to be just as important as campaigning. Right. You know, the summer program idea with the kids in the Bronx and educating them, teaching them actual political theory and history, I think is going to be great. And I'm sure Russ is going to come in and do some modernist play that will certainly resonate with all the kids in the Bronx. So,
hey man, I'm very unpretentious. That's one of the things that's actually why I didn't get an MFA.
Oh,
because I was like, what? Okay, 4 years getting a BA. Yeah, I learned a lot of technical shit about how to direct. But by the end of that process, I already felt like, when you study it that way, you wind up going off into experimental jazz because it's where you're going to go. If you're really getting that caught up in the aesthetics, eventually you start directing for other people who have been educated in that area, which means you're going to start getting into experimental stuff because you're just talking to them. That's it. You really lose touch with art as grounded in society. So when most of the people who really wanted to make a profession out of it were already applying for their MFA in their senior year. People asked me if I was going to apply. I said, why? So my work can become more obscure and inscrutable than 4 years of a BA has already made it? Nah, I need to get back to the streets, man.
Okay, good.
So it won't be modernist.
Well, I was thinking Annie Jr. No.
Hey, speaking of Junior, so
do some Strindberg in the Bronx.
Yeah, there you go. So, you're giving a speech at the fundraiser. Russell is emceeing it. Jimmy's doing a comedy show. I'm kind of fourth wheeling it, right? I'm going to be on the panel. But I thought it would be funny if I dress up as Richie Torres and then you can walk me around the stage on a leash.
I think we're a little more highbrow.
A little more highbrow.
We're gonna recreate the assault scene in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah,
Keaton's gonna dress as the Gimp.
Yeah, that was just a suggestion. You're the candidate. You get the final say. You don't have to.
You understand that the Torres camp is like watching this for Oppo research right now, and they're like just hearing that.
Well, you rejected it. You did the responsible thing. You rejected it. You said no. You said when they go low, we go high.
That was a test.
So that's the way to go. That's the way to go.
That was
but
a test.
We would get a lot of press out of it. I think we get some headlines, and no publicity is bad publicity as an independent. And by the way,
actually, I mean, it would be a great kind of Andy Kaufman performance art experiment to do something like that, because the liberal class is so programmed to get behind any kind of weird perversion you throw at them. If they can't kink shame you, right? So if you attach that to Jose's campaign, you can't attack Jose without attacking the leather daddy and his Gimp.
Yeah,
we're at the fundraiser.
Well, I wasn't going to go that far. I just thought the mild innuendo of walking me around on a leash might be fun. But we don't have to, like I said, I'm just spitballing, I'm just throwing things out there. I could pour drinks, whatever.
No, listen, Jose,
I'll do whatever you need me to do.
We're workshopping this, but I think we stumbled on a great defense for you against the liberal class. Like they're attacking Pride, especially it's Pride Month.
Yeah,
right?
It's gonna
be. If they attack you is to attack Pride Month.
It's so funny because the other day I signed somebody up who was like, "Oh, I can't sign because I work for an elected," and then I said, "Is it Richie Torres?" They said no, but somewhere there. And I just started talking to the person. I was like, well, you can sign, first of all, if you haven't signed for anybody else. And she is like grilling me on like, well, why do you want to run? Why against Torres? And her last question was, well, why don't you look the part? I was like, lady, I have one suit.
Yeah.
I have one suit. Well, I am out every day for 5 fucking weeks. I do not have the time nor the money to dry clean my suit. And secondly, I've gotten lots of signatures because people are like, oh, you got the curly hair and you look like us. Okay, all right, I trust you. Because
exactly.
They
don't get that. Of course. They don't get that.
Right. No, absolutely.
That. And like, so it was interesting to me that this woman who works in the political arena for an elected official thinks I should look the part. But the everyday common people are like, nah, man, I'm signing you up because you don't look like everyone else.
Right. Well, and what was really interesting when we went out there, which by the way, April 20th is Hitler's birthday. We picked up on that dog whistle, but we decided not to say anything about it. But when we went out there, nobody liked Richie Torres. It's so interesting when you talk to people on the street. Nobody likes Richie Torres. Nobody backs Israel. I had one guy, we talked about that. He flipped because I told him Richie Torres is supported by AIPAC. He said, I like Richie Torres. I said, you know how much AIPAC money Richie Torres takes? He said, well, what about Jose Vega? I said, he's against it. He was like, all right, I'll sign.
There you go. Well, you see, because people know, first of all, that Richie Torres sucks, but they also don't know there's an alternative unless you present them one.
Right.
That's why, like, we have to flood the Bronx in the summer. Summer's going to be great. All right. Like, people should come out, spend a weekend in the Bronx, handing out literature, tabling, canvassing, the whole shebang. It should be fun. Like, that's one thing I want to emphasize. This campaign is going to be fun. As much as we're going up against a Goliath here, and believe me, I mean, I've been seeing how it's a double-edged sword. As we get a lot of support from the community, we've also been getting things from the other side, too, that have been trying to intimidate us. I won't go into specifics on that for security reasons, but all I'll say is it's going to be fun. Like, if you think slaying a giant is fun, then this campaign truly is for you. And
well,
so,
this is the thing. I mean, when you said, people, just want an alternative to Richie Torres and they don't know there is one, this is the real power of an independent campaign. And for those who are tuning in and are not hip to Jose's campaign, he's not running in a primary, he's running as an independent. So when we say he's on the ballot, that means he's on the ballot in November on the big day,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And the real power of that in a blue district is that under normal circumstances in a deep blue district like the Bronx, people assume that the alternative to Richie Torres is a Republican who they also hate and probably hate even more. But when I told them, no, he's running as an independent, I got a lot of people saying, oh, interesting, because they didn't think of that. Right. And in a district like the Bronx, it's almost like the Republican is the spoiler in a three-way race because the Republican has no chance of winning. You're better off running as an independent than on the GOP ticket. And so by running as an independent, you introduce a lot of people for the first time to the idea that, no, actually, you can vote for someone other than Richie Torres who's not right-wing. And that presents a real opportunity for people. I use that a lot to get people to sign on the dotted line, as did many people who I was out there gathering signatures with. So that's great. Now, one more thing I have to ask you, unless you wanted to add something there, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One thing I wanted to ask you, you said that when you got the number of signatures you needed, you would cut the hair. But did you grow to like the hair? Is that your thing now, or are you going to cut it?
No. That's not it at all. That's not. Well, first of all, I did get some conditioner, and it kind of like helps with the curls and stuff.
Right. It looks fine.
It's a maintenance thing. No, I promised I would get the haircut. I'm gonna get the haircut. It's just a matter of like when the next pay cycle is. We're broke. I'm broke. So I have negative $20 in my account.
I used to know a guy who used to shave his head so he'd have more money for weed.
So maybe I should do that, but for campaign literature. Like, I shave my head because we need to print more, literature. But
that's not bad.
No, so once there's also still a lot of logistical work to do, and I'm out every day. So hopefully once we hand in the signatures, I will go and I will shave it off for one. I made a promise that I will. So, the shaving, definitely, yes. I know my beard's overgrown and stuff. Look, people don't understand the petitioning thing. It takes up your life, that big boost we got. Oh, and if you want to know, we got I think that day, the Saturday that you guys came out on that rally, we had about 850 to 900 signatures on that one day.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So it was truly great. I
didn't realize you got that many that day.
No. And I try to keep like specific numbers under wraps and stuff because, as much as we like to have fun and joke around, I really do mean not just Richie Torres, but like, you have to understand, this guy has raised $1.5 million. No, excuse me, half $500,000 from IPAC in just this election cycle alone. They are not going to go down easy swinging. All right. And if they see an opponent who has a modicum of a chance of taking him down, all right, they're not going to fuck around and they're going to try and squash me like a bug.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I need all of you to support this campaign, whether that's money or time or getting the word out there. That's what's going to fight back against IPAC. I know Jamal Bowman is fighting against George Latimer right now. You guys know about this race going on.
Yes.
I do. I know a fucking foaming at the mouth Zionist who's volunteering for Latimer.
Oh, God.
I thought that was the one you converted.
No, there's
another one.
No, the other one is beyond hope.
Oh.
Look, I saw this report that in February, 3,000 Republicans switched to Democrat just to vote Bowman out and get Latimer in. Think about that, right? And then what does Bowman do? He says, it's MAGA Republicans funding my opponent.
I know, yeah. Ridiculous.
Dude, tell the truth about what this is, because Richie Torres is getting IPAC money too. He's not a Republican. Biden is getting IPAC money. All of these Democrats are getting IPAC money. This is not a MAGA thing. That's why you pissed off all the Republicans, right?
That's the kind of guy he is. That's how stupid he is. He's running in a primary, losing the primary, and he attacks MAGA Republicans who don't have a say in the primary.
I genuinely mean.
Come on, man. Give us your Bowman. Give us your Bowman.
Come on, man.
How does my
That's your
Bowman go?
Bowman.
This is the foundation of democracy. No, look, I genuinely do not want George Latimer in there. I really would rather have a Bowman than a Latimer. But at the same
we love
time,
Bowman. He gives us material. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think it's the fact that like we're in this situation right now where you have to pick between, the lesser of two evils, and it just goes to show that our standard of what a politician is, it's like it's been so degraded. We should be demanding more of our politicians. Like in an ideal world, neither Bowman or Latimer would be running. We would have somebody who's actually competent. But now we're in this situation where Latimer is going to completely, at least from what I've seen in the polls, there could be an upset.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen. I saw that one that came out where he was leading by 18 points. This is Westchester. It's
Westchester,
and I think the Zionist that I know who's volunteering for him is much more typical of that population than a Bowman voter.
There's a tiny piece of the Bronx in that district, and Yonkers is fairly diverse, so he'll get votes out of there. But so much of that district, I mean, you're talking about Scarsdale, you're talking about Tarrytown, you're talking about big money, huge money in that district. And I think the only reason he got in there in 2020 is because, first of all, his opponent made that ridiculous remark on a hot mic about how he wouldn't have to comment on racial justice issues were it not for George Floyd.
Right.
And I think at that point, don't forget, that was the summer everybody had the black square in their bio. Everybody felt very connected to that cause. And so he rode that wave and got big turnout in Yonkers and the Bronx. And at the time, progressives, a lot of them were still invested in the Democratic Party. Now a lot of progressives are not. So there's not really a base of like left-wing insurgent Democrats to have your back, especially when he's been such a disappointment. So, yeah, it is going to be tough for him to keep his seat. But this is, again, why it's important that you're running as an independent, one of many reasons. We're now on the ballot on the big day. We don't got to worry about getting knocked out in a first round. You now have almost 6 months to rack up as many votes as you can. And we are going to help you do that starting now. And we'll be in the Bronx June 6th. Fundraiser with Jimmy Dore and company. So
we're gonna be there, and as Jose is indicating there, we are going to have a little light heavyweight boxing.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
So, Jose was Golden Gloves for his section of the Bronx.
All right, Jose, we'll let you go. Go ahead, unless you have one more thing.
Yeah. I just want to say, because, generally, let's face it, this is a black pill show. That's why we have a black pill in our logo. It's hidden, but if you drop acid, you can
it's the dot on the eye is actually a
dot
black
on the eye. It's very black pill. But I truly believe that we are on the cusp of a new massive social revolution. America goes through that from time to time, even before the actual American Revolution. America has always been prone to these moments of mass uprising and mass upheaval and challenges to authority and overturning authority. And if you see the story we're going to be covering later, where 70% of people want to drastically change the economic and political system, this is one of those moments of major, major upheaval and change. And as much as we've been lamenting, there's no art, there's no culture, there is, man. There is. There are musicians out there who are singing about these things. There are the painters, there are the writers, just as there were in the 40s, but you didn't hear of them because everybody was too busy going, rah, rah, we beat the Nazis, we beat the Nazis. You didn't see that counterculture, but it was there and it bubbled up more and more over the succeeding years. You can't just sit in front of a computer. That is part of what's so important about campaigns like this and efforts like this. Politics is inherently personal, and there's only so personal you can be this way. It's great that this brings us all together, but you got to get out in the streets. You got to actually do something. Otherwise, it's just bitching, man. I mean, you might as well just do movie reviews if that's what it's about. This is really, it's literally about life and death for some people.
Absolutely.
One question I do want to ask you, So you said CCNY is locked down because that's where I've been out of town for so many months. That's where I'll usually take like my evening walk. I'll cut through there. So you're telling me you can't cut through that campus now?
I was with the staffer of mine and we tried some like Mission Impossible, like to try and, no, they got double security checkpoints.
Oh, wow. So you can't cut through from the gate there. You can't do that.
But the security guard told me that it was changing day by day. Yesterday they had a rally planned there, so that's probably why there was an increase.
Right.
And then I think I read an article recently that CUNY granted $100 million for private security just at that campus. So you do see a lot of the private security guards.
100 million?
Something like that. Yeah, I could be wrong, but it was something like they granted a lot of money. Maybe it was less. Maybe I'm misremembering the figure, but I remember it being something egregious where I was like, Jesus, just for security, but because the commencement is like weeks away. So
yeah, that's right.
All right, I'm gonna have to go research this after dinner.
All right, man.
I usually walk to Jackie Robinson Park. I'll go that way.
VoteVega.nyc is the website. Anything else anybody should know before we let you go?
If people do want to get involved, whether it's Bronx Freedom Summer or in the campaign in general, of course, you can sign up on votevega.nyc. We do need, there we go. There's a number on the back of this card, which never mind. You're not gonna be able to see it there. But if you're lucky enough to get one of my palm cards, there's a phone number on the back. It goes right to me. And and of course, we do need donations. Absolutely. If you can donate, actually, I actually prefer if you cannot come out and petition or volunteer, then you can donate. I believe, as we do need the funds. Don't get me wrong. I need a haircut, but your time and your manpower is immensely more valuable because that interaction I had with the woman who said, yeah, my girlfriends have been talking about you. And she's like this 50-year-old mother, and she's like, yeah, my girlfriends have been talking about you. They say they see you everywhere. I hope you're one of the good ones, right? That's manpower. That's people power. That's actual grassroots, right? That's not something $8 million can get you. That's something only people can get you. That being said, though, if you can donate, please do so. We do need the funds.
All right. Beautiful. Thanks, man. Always a pleasure. We'll be in touch many times before June 6th, but we'll see you out there.
Absolutely. Take care.
Right.
Someone sent
Thank you, Jose.
Card. I'll take that too.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Thanks, Jose.
All right. See you soon, man.
Bye. Round of applause in the chat for Jose Vega, everybody. What a guy. That's pretty good, man. 1 for 1 getting on the ballot. The post-duopoly movement is 1 for 1 on ballot access as an independent campaign. So we made it. We made it. We are
Jose,
in the game.
I would dare say he got the due dissidence bump.
There you go. Well, yeah, 850, 900. I mean, a lot of you guys came out that day. Some of you guys were in that little video that he just put out, which I'm assuming is going to go up on Twitter right now. But yeah, we met quite a few of you that day. Yeah, we had about 50 people, and he had a couple of ringers that day because I live in New York State, so I was witness. So some of the people who came in from out of state to get signatures, I had to sign
those
their
guys
sheet.
came in from what, Ohio?
A bunch of people from Jersey. One guy came in from Kansas City, and I was signing a lot of papers. We had a lot of people. Like there was this one guy from Jersey who was just boom, boom, boom. Every 10 minutes, I'm signing off on 10 more signatures. So yeah. Great job, Jose. Congratulations. We are in the finals, as we say. We made the finals, so that's great to see. Pat Donahue, thanks for the €5. Just a question. If Cornel West was on the New York ballot, would either of you vote for him? Interested to ask. Well, he's not going to be. I mean, I would be shocked if he makes the ballot. It's a very expensive state to run in to get that ballot access. And no, I would vote for Jill Stein.
I would vote for Jill Stein if I were going to do something like that.
Yeah. And we have a segment on that actually coming up later in the show today. But yes, I would definitely vote for Jill Stein over Cornell.
In a heartbeat.
Black Spot, thanks for the $1.99. Appreciate that. Todd S, thanks for the $5. Congrats, Jose. Gotta love the hoops to get on the ballot. That's American democracy for you. Yes. You overcame it, though. It takes 3,500 signatures to qualify, which means you really need double that to feel safe. Jose set his sights even higher. I'm not at liberty to disclose
New York
numbers,
State
but
is notoriously corrupt. Our political process, it really invented urban machine-style politics, and there are a lot of elements to that remaining because it's basically been a one-party state throughout its history with a few Republican interludes. but basically it's been run by Democrats for its entire history.
Exactly. And that's why he set the ballot goal, the ballot signature, goal, very high, much higher than the 3,500. And he is at a number now where both he and we feel comfortable saying he will be on the ballot in November, which is amazing. That's really exciting. Jules Vega says Jose for president. Thank you, Jules. Appreciate that. Let's go to Kenman G over on Rumble. Jake is not here today, but his app is. So if you got Rumble rants, you could send those over. 1813 on YouTube, 1654 on Rumble. Great crowd all around. Please have Yara Shufani on your show. She's a graduate student with the Palestine Youth Movement and a frequent guest on Breakthrough News. Great insight about college protests. Yeah, I want to get some students on the show. I think that would be a
cool,
great
man.
idea.
I got some contacts when I went and covered that Columbia protest, but then I went out to LA.
Right. Okay.
And tomorrow night, we will be going to cover the launch of Corporate Coup.
Yes. Going to be at the Anya Parent Pill event tomorrow night. Tomorrow during the day, by the way, at the 2:00 show, which is a Rumble day because it's Wednesday, we're going to be interviewing Omali Yeshitela from the African People's Socialist Party. And so we are very much looking forward to that. That's going to be a big episode for us. So make sure you tune in tomorrow, 2 p.m. on Rumble. Make sure you're subscribed over there because that's going to be a Rumble exclusive. We'll drop clips on YouTube. We might even drop the whole interview on YouTube, but we're streaming exclusively on Rumble.
We'll see how it goes
tomorrow.
We'll see what kind of territory we get into.
Yeah, indeed. But I want that to be an uncensored interview, and it's Wednesday anyway, and so that's where it's happening. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. Okay. His Highness, open your eyes, sheeple. Jose is clearly in the pocket of big watermelon. Also, if they have seedless watermelon, how do they grow them? Who's on first? What's in the chicken? Yeah, there you go. Thank you, His Highness. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go on to some segments. We got some more super chats and some Rumble rants that we will get to in due time, obviously. Big polling this week out of some key swing states making a lot of news. New York Times reports Trump leads in 5 key states as young and non-white voters express discontent with Biden. A new set of Times Siena polls, including one with the Philadelphia Inquirer, reveal an erosion of support for the president among young and non-white voters upset about the economy and Gaza. So if we look at these numbers, of the 6 swing states polled, Trump leads in 5 of them. You have Biden +2 in Wisconsin, and that's it for Biden's leads. Biden down 3 in Pennsylvania, down 7 in Arizona, down 7 in Michigan, down 10 in Georgia, and down 12 in Nevada. Pretty disastrous polling there. Donald J. Trump leads President Biden in 5 crucial battleground states. A new set of polls shows as a yearning for change and discontent over the economy and the war in Gaza among young Black and Hispanic voters threaten to unravel the president's Democratic coalition. The findings are mostly unchanged since the last series of Times Siena polls in battleground states in November. Since then, the stock market has gained 25%. Mr. Trump's criminal trial in Manhattan has started, and the Biden campaign has unleashed tens of millions of dollars in advertisements across the battleground states. The polls offer little indication that any of these developments have helped Mr. Biden, hurt Mr. Trump, or quelled the electorate's discontent. Instead, the surveys show that the cost of living, immigration, Israel's war in Gaza, and a desire for change continue to be a drag on the president's standing. While Mr. Biden benefited from a burst of momentum in the wake of his State of the Union address in March, he continues to trail in the average of national and battleground state polls. The findings reveal widespread dissatisfaction with the state of the country and serious doubts about Mr. Biden's ability to deliver major improvements to American life. A majority of voters still desire the return to normalcy promised by Mr. Biden in the last campaign, but voters in battleground states remain particularly anxious, unsettled, and itching for change. Nearly 70% of voters say that the country's political and economic systems need major changes or even to be torn down entirely. Remember that. We're going to get that.
God.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Sorry, I just realized my mic settings are screwed up. I just changed them. I might sound a little bit better now. Only a sliver of Mr. Biden's supporters, just 13%, believe that the president would bring major changes in his second term, while even many of those who dislike Mr. Trump grudgingly acknowledge that he would shake up an unsatisfying status quo. Sounds exactly like 2016, does it not? I mean, literally, you could say the exact same thing 8 years ago. The sense that Mr. Biden would do little to improve the nation's fortunes has helped erode his standing among young Black and Hispanic voters who usually represent the foundation of any Democratic path to the presidency. The Times Siena polls found that the three groups wanted fundamental changes to American society, not just a return to normalcy, and few believe that Mr. Biden would make even minor changes that would be good for the country. Yes, even minor changes.
Well, that was his campaign promise. Nothing would fundamentally change. They're taking him at his word.
That was literally the campaign promise. Absolutely. Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden are essentially tied among 18 to 29-year-olds and Hispanic voters, even though each group gave Mr. Biden more than 60% of their vote in 2020. Mr. Trump also wins more than 20% of Black voters, a tally that would be the highest level of Black support for any Republican presidential candidate since the enactment of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The polls suggest that Mr. Trump's strength amongst young and non-white voters has at least temporarily upended the electoral map, with Mr. Trump surging to a significant lead in Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada, relatively diverse Sunbelt states where Black and Hispanic voters propelled Mr. Biden to signature victories in the 2020 election. So here is the set of numbers that really says it all. Most Americans think the system needs to change, which comes closest to your view about the political and economic system in America, even if none are exactly right. The system needs to be torn down entirely, 14%. Major changes, 55%. So 69% say either we have to tear it down or at the very least make major changes. And this is where the poll just becomes devastating for Biden. And this really tells the story, not just of this election cycle, but of 2016 and likely of 2020, minus a once-in-a-century pandemic interfering at the last minute. So 13%, that's funny. I don't know who those people are. 13% thinks Biden's going to tear down the system entirely, and only 11% say he'll make major changes.
And strangely, they're all voting for Jose Vega.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yes. So you have 69% of respondents say we need to tear down the system or at the very least make major changes. Only 24% of those voters think Biden will do that. 70% of voters think Trump will do that. This is the Molotov cocktail brick through the window theory that Michael Moore talked about in 2016 and was right about. That tells the whole story right there.
And things were relatively good then.
Exactly. That's like 2 Corinthians, folks. That's the whole ball game.
That's the whole ball game.
Yeah. And when you look at this, do you think the changes that this candidate, Biden and Trump, would make would be good for the country or bad for the country or neither good nor bad? 24% say somewhat or very good. 15% say neither for Biden. For Trump, 55% say somewhat or very good or neither. That nothing would change. That 32% in Biden's column, nothing would change. That's what's holding him back here. Because you have a third of people saying nothing's going to change with Biden there, to the point where even if they're 50-50 on the kind of change Trump would bring, what is this? This tells the exact story. Now we actually have it in numbers. In a scientifically conducted polling survey, you see that desire for something, that desperation for something to pop. And I said this about a year ago. This was pre-October 7th. I said if you thought the conditions for Trumpism were good in 2016, they're going to be even better in 2024. And that seems to be spot on, if I might say so myself. with 69% across swing states, and that's key. So Mr. Trump fares especially well among those who believe that the political and economic systems ought to be torn down, a group that represents about 15% of registered voters. He leads among these anti-system, shorthand fine, voters by 32 points. And the tear it down voters are especially likely to have defected from the president. In contrast, Mr. Biden retains nearly all of his 2020 supporters who believe only minor changes are necessary. So there you have it. And if you dig into this a little bit more, this is specifically these swing states, 18 to 29-year-olds, Donald Trump 30, Biden 26. That's incredible. That's incredible. Bobby Kennedy actually polls 18% amongst young people, which is a huge number as well. And so if you look at that spread, the only age demographic where Biden's actually leading are the boomers, 65 and up.
Who'd have
He's
thought
losing every other demographic. Among young people, it's close. Among middle-aged people, not even remotely close. And so these are devastating numbers for Joe Biden. He got a little bit of a bounce after the State of the Union, as presidents tend to do, especially since Trump was really absent from the campaign trail during the first few weeks of his trial. He's gotten out on the road a little bit since then, had a couple of rallies, had a big one in Jersey the other day. And so you're seeing Trump really maintain a swing state lead. Those general election polls that we saw tightening, those were almost all national polls. In the swing states, Trump has maintained a lead, and now you see a lead open up to 12 in Nevada, 10 in Georgia, and Michigan +7. Those are big leads to have less than 6 months away. Now, politics can change quickly, but those are pretty big leads well outside the margin of error in very key states, swing states. And it shouldn't surprise you too much that the respondents answered those survey questions the way they did in swing states. Discontent, widespread discontent, is how those swing states became swing states. Michigan and Wisconsin didn't used to be swing states. Not even Pennsylvania, really. A little bit, but not really. Those were pretty safe blue states. That was the blue wall in 2016. And it crumbled in 2016 for the exact same reasons that you could forecast it may crumble now. So that is about as dire a set of polls as you could have expected in mid-May.
I think this is all part of a plot to kill James Carville.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That's why
I
he's
don't think
freaking
it's
out
a
at the
coincidence
whiteboard.
they just dropped this now.
Yeah, right.
When he's clearly having a nervous breakdown with a marker and a whiteboard.
Yeah, they want to give him a heart attack.
My whole life has been for nothing.
Yeah.
All those cayenne enemas. What did they add up to? Nothing.
Yeah.
So this is all of the factors at play that were at play in 2016 among a much broader swath of the electorate. 2016, it was really about people whose middle-class lives had gone up in smoke in these deindustrialized parts of the country. And now those economic conditions have spread to more people, more sectors of society. Trump won under circumstances where overall the economic situation, other than for that swath of the population, was not bad. Overall, you didn't have inflation. You had low interest rates and low inflation, something that we took for granted. You had that for a pretty long time, for over 10 years. You had a regime of low interest rates that didn't seem to spur inflation. That's why the stock market went so insane in those years. This kind of inflation, you haven't seen this since Jimmy Carter. And the results are similar. When people have these kinds of gas prices, when people have this kind of economic discontent, it's almost impossible for an incumbent to win. And throw into the mix that you've got this decrepit guy who never had a base, who never had anyone who actually supported him. There were never Biden Democrats, even when he won. Nobody ever really liked him. And he's clearly in a state of cognitive decline. Which whatever else you say about Trump, all the libs are like, oh, he fell asleep in court. He fell asleep in court. That shit's boring, man. I bet most of the people saying that would fall asleep if you had to sit in there every day.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very thin reed to hang a whataboutism kind of a charge on Trump. No, he's just like Biden. No, he's not. He's clearly much more with it. He's much more robust. He's much more energetic. He's much more vital. He doesn't come across as weak, frail, stumbling. Whether you like him or don't like him, he doesn't come across as a fragile old man who's losing his marbles, and Biden does. The Democrats are really remarkable in thinking they could foist this guy on the public. And it's again, just like with Hillary, I never thought it was a statement on how good a politician Trump is, although he has his skills. He's always been very lucky in his enemies. Hillary could not have been a better foil for Donald Trump. She was maybe the most repulsive person to ever achieve that level of high office. And the only reason she did is she married Bill Clinton. She never could have gotten there on her own with her wonderful fetching personality. Now he's running against an obvious dementia patient. That's why nothing is sticking. Combined with the fact that as much as that brick through the window impulse that Michael Moore described was at play in 2016, times that by 10 now, and amongst a much broader swath of the population. What has Joe Biden brought us? War, inflation, which we talked about this.
I said that those are the three pillars of his campaign: are war, inflation, and censorship.
Well, and as these polls keep coming out, they're getting increasingly hysterical. We did that Morning Joe Hillary segment the other day, and wow, they just keep upping the ante on reading as a dissolute aristocracy complaining about having lost the people's love and blaming it entirely on the ignorance of the peasants. They can't imagine they did anything wrong. Jesus, when you got a poll coming out where about half of the people who said they wanted drastic change and supported Donald Trump said they thought the change would be bad. What was that? Like 45% of the people in that poll thought the change would be bad. 35?
Yeah, I think it was about 45. Yeah.
And they still want to vote for him. What does this tell you about how badly you have fucked up your responsibility as establishment managers of the society? How much have you completely alienated the voters that they would pick this guy who they don't even really seem to particularly like? They don't, as much as you want to project onto people who are going to vote for Trump that they're ignorant, they seem to understand what Donald Trump is actually, and they still prefer him to you. Right. They still prefer him to you, and this does not lead to any self-examination, and of course it doesn't. They just get more and more hysterical about how people aren't educated enough. We have to stop the spread of misinformation. It's everything else. It's everything else. Everything but them.
Yeah, they seem, for a party so obsessed with maintaining democracy, they are remarkably incurious and uninterested about what people actually think and what they want, right? I mean, they insist that there's nothing they can do. That's what James Carville said. We covered that in the last thing. He's standing at the whiteboard. I don't know. We keep telling them January 6th was an assault on the Temple of Democracy or whatever the fuck you want to call it, and they're not working because they're not interested in actually responding to polls like this or polls like this, where you say here 70% trust Donald Trump to fundamentally change the system. Only 24% trust Biden to do the same thing. And if you look at this, 70%, 69% want the system changed in that way. And James Carville, not only is he blind to that when he talks most recently, but if you go back years, he has been openly and very viciously hostile to that 69% of people who want changes. He has spoken out against universal health care, against student debt cancellation. So he is not interested in actually meeting people where they're at and responding to their demands desires, what have you. He is interested in getting people's minds right, lecturing them until they fall in line. Now, you can call that whatever you want. That's not democracy in any really healthy interpretation of the word.
One thing Winston Marshall said in his debate with Pelosi, it wasn't that anything that he said was wrong. It was just very incomplete. But that aside, he showed a bunch of headlines from after Trump's election, and you might remember this. There were all of these articles about how we have too much democracy, that democracy is a failure, that maybe we need to tweak democracy, that democracy doesn't really work. Like, they were openly attacking the idea of popular democracy because, look, it yielded Trump. And of course, they brought Plato into it very often in these articles because Plato was very skeptical of democracy because of what had happened to Socrates. So, yeah, I mean, these people fundamentally don't believe in democracy. And this is why when they see polls like this, their only response is more censorship. They absolutely cannot wrestle with the idea that the neoliberal project is leading us to a fascist revolution. They just can't. They can't, because it's like what Thomas Frank said in the interview I always recommend with him about why Donald Trump won. This is very painful for particularly people of Hillary's generation, because it would mean their entire political project was a mistake.
Right. Exactly. DC, Dems reps count ballots, may trash Indy votes. Rebecca Rydberg, thanks for the $9.99. So proud of Jose Vega and everyone who supported the efforts. I plan to donate tonight. Good on you, Rebecca. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Our elections are as fake as AOC's convictions, says DC. Long story short, Jose's haircut fund. Thank you. Long story short, trying to get him in the black for a haircut. Philip Blair says Phil Oaks. And DC echoes that. Phil Oaks underrated AF, miles ahead of Dylan. Yeah, Phil Oaks was a great songwriter.
It's funny this keeps coming up because I'm reading this Weird Tales of the Canyon
I know,
book.
yeah, he's a deep state, right? Yeah.
And I sent you guys. Look, I've got to go and look into that story, but it was a pretty interesting story that at the end of his life, he claimed to be somebody else, which, could just be a nervous breakdown. But I've never heard this story.
He committed suicide, didn't he?
Well, he did, but it says before he committed suicide, he claimed to actually have another personality, to be somebody else who was extremely right-wing and conservative and militaristic. A lot of this book is drawing, the stories are very interesting, and it would definitely make a great novel or screenplay. He's showing how all of these people who were part of this whole Laurel Canyon scene that really created hippie culture, San Francisco came after, it really started in Laurel Canyon, to an astounding degree came from these military intelligence families and were concentrated around Virginia and the DC suburbs. Like Jim Morrison went to kindergarten with John Phillips from the Mamas and Papa's wife. Like there were all these weird connections between these people. And many of them came to very gruesome ends, which the author is skeptical of a lot of them that are labeled suicide as being suicide.
Interesting. Let's go to some Rumble rants over here. Oh, George, the U.S. has 5% of the world's population and 25% of its prison population, right? 25 minus 5 is 20, that according to 80-20 rule, U.S. citizens are 80% naughtier than everybody else combined, correct? Could be true. Thank you, Oh, George. Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Honestly, that's one of the most dangerous things about being an American, because you get caught up in the criminal justice system, you are fucked.
Oh, yeah. No, it's horrible. CJ for Revolution. Russell, Red Letter Media does reviews. They are hilarious. Gives me laughter when it's so needed right now. Keep killing it, boys. Vote Vega NYC. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I am a huge fan of the Phantom Menace review.
Awesome. Happy birthday, Jill Stein. Oh, is it Jill Stein's birthday today? Oh, well, in that case, I am glad we decided to do this next segment, which just so happens to be about Jill Stein and Cornel West. So, Jill Stein appeared on the Bad Faith podcast to respond to some of Cornel West's statements about her, that he's lost all respect for her. And as the calendar advances and winter turns to spring, and now we're entering mid-spring toward the beginning of the summer, if the left wants to make any kind of statement on Election Day, which seems impossible, quite frankly, at the moment, they're going to have to decide Jill Stein or Cornel West. And so that creates a bit of urgency behind this rift of theirs. So let's hear Jill Stein describe Cornel West's campaign.
It's just very clear when Dr. West stepped away from millions upon millions of dollars worth of ballot lines that there's no way he would be able to duplicate. It was just clear that this was not going to be a strategic campaign. That has continued to be borne out as he remains kind of on the ballot for a handful of ballots. He recently accepted the nomination, where was this? I think in Colorado, of some centrist party, which is the equivalent of No Labels. So he's actually now running with a political party that, is totally centrist, and they sort of believe in common sense solutions that unify the Democratic and Republican parties, and it so dilutes his message and, it discredits his larger work here in the campaign. So, his campaign is continuing to stall, shall we say,
Okay, I want to take a bit of a time out there because I want to show you guys a little bit of this Unity Party of Colorado. So this is what he's on. Now, to actually get the full experience of this, I'm going to have to do a screen share because we're going to have to see this kind of organization. This is the party that has given him the nomination, but Jill Stein is right. They present themselves more as a no labels type forward party.
Sounds exactly like No Labels.
Centrist-oriented party. The Unity Party grew out of the grassroots group named Runners for Clark, which supported General Wesley Clark's 2004 presidential campaign by raising campaign contributions and awareness of Clark's run for the presidency. Skip down to the bottom. Today, the Unity Party is continuing to expand into the last remaining states and D.C. If you are in one of these states and interested in seeing the option of unity in your state's ballot, we would be excited to work with you. And yes, Centrist Views. The Centrist is the official publication of the Unity Party of America. According to Wikipedia, again, this is a political party. Wikipedia! According to Wikipedia, centrism is defined as a political outlook or specific position that involves acceptance or support of a balance of a degree of social equality and a degree of social hierarchy while opposing political changes which would result in a significant shift of society strongly to either the left or the right. And so Jill Stein is exactly right. Now, look, I have to just share this with you to give you guys the full effect of this party, quote unquote, that Cornel is running with. The Unity Party of Colorado. We, on April 13th at our assembly, we nominated Dr. Cornel West for U.S. president. He will appear on the Colorado ballot in November. All right, so we want to learn more about, oops, you reached a page that is not united. We get this is like the Columbia University thing, right? Concerns. Whoops, you reached a page that is not like it's a complete joke organization. And not only is it a joke organization, it is an organization that is ideologically aligned with the opposite of what like a mass movement based left campaign should be involving itself with. Clearly,
why did they even let him on their line?
Well, I was getting to that. Clearly, they are doing what we thought maybe Cornel should do with a legitimate left party, which is attach yourself to get profile, to raise your profile. Right, they figure, hey, right. Cornel West is as big a name as we're going to get. So, yeah, he doesn't stand for what we stand for, but who cares? We get eyeballs on us, right? They're going to grift off of him. Right. You know what I mean? That's clearly why they're doing it, because his platform is not theirs. But you make a joke out of yourself and an ass out of your your movement when you do that, to the point where you can't say Cornell is even building a move. This is why I said, if I had to choose, and I'm not promising to vote for Jill Stein. I don't really care who you vote for. I'm not getting involved. I don't think it's worth arguing about, quite frankly. I think it's unimportant. Unless, they get a real chance for 5%. And even at that point, do we want to empower the Greens? The Greens are fucking useless. Who cares, right? So anyway, that argument aside, you want to make a case that your campaign is about more than a campaign. It's about a movement. That's what we always say, right? Well, if you're if you're legitimizing organizations like this, then you're not even building a movement. What are you doing? It's just a vanity campaign at that point. Like, let's say in a fantasy world, Cornell blows it out of the water in Colorado and gets 20% of the vote. You really want to give that credibility to this bullshit organization with a toy website and a centrist ideology? Like, is that really what you're into? At this point, it is just a vanity campaign.
Pie chart. They have a pie chart.
Yeah, it's really embarrassing. Anything to add before we go back to Jill Stein?
No, not really, no.
All right.
Fabulous message. He still has a fabulous message, but that doesn't get you, anywhere in a presidential election to have a strong message. So to me, this is all going to sort itself out very quickly. If you've seen the ballot maps that the New York Times published a couple days ago, you see that our campaign is way ahead, even compared to RFK with all his, millions of dollars and super PAC donors and all that. We're still
billionaire VP.
Right. Yeah, we're still way ahead. I mean, there's no doubt he's going to be on the ballot, but he is going to have to be accountable one of these days. He pretends to be a peace candidate. And to say that, you have to pretend that the war in the Middle East is not a war. This war that could easily become, World War III and go nuclear very quickly. The U.S. and Israel are bombing some, 5 or 6 countries right now. We're in active hostilities, and this could go ballistic. Bibi Netanyahu is trying to drag us into a war with Iran. This is unbelievably dangerous. And, RFK is not being straightforward with his base. He's still trying to present himself as a peace candidate. So the Middle East is not peace, and it's not negligible. It's not like a footnote here. It's really central and maybe the most dangerous conflict that we are involved in right now.
Okay, so, if you want to make an impact as a left candidate running on a third party, really the last thing, if you are the Green Party right now, that you want to be doing is fighting for Cornel West's 1% of the vote. Like, if Cornell had any decency, he would just fucking drop out. I mean, you're not going to make an impact. Just get out. You're not going to be on enough ballots to make an impact to whatever extent this matters. And like I said, that's a huge asterisk there, because I don't particularly feel that the Green Party is worth the investment. If you think this matters, though, and if you are, that's good on you. Jill Stein has a right to run just as everybody else. You can't be arguing about you versus Cornel West now. She goes on in this interview to talk about Cornell's problems with her, which Cornell was never really forthcoming about. He always said, I lost great respect for Sister Jill Stein, and then wouldn't get into specifics. Come on, that's chicken shit. It all goes back to he got cold feet when he realized the Greens were going to be on the ballot, and he was going to cost Joe Biden the race potentially if he got 6, 7, 8%.
He was going to get nadered.
Exactly. His first poll out, he had 6% because Cornell's a big name. So that's why. So then he makes up this bullshit about a feud with Jill Stein. Won't get into specifics, probably because there are no specifics. Whatever personality differences there were, I'm sure did not supersede the urgency in his mind of getting out of Joe Biden's way. And so now you create this mess where now, on top of everything else, as stacked as the deck is against third parties, now Jill Stein's got to fucking make the case to the green, anti-imperialist, socialist voters, her over Cornel West. When really, if you're Jill Stein, you want to be taking that fight to the two major parties. So just another example of what a colossal missed opportunity this year was for the left to organize electorally. Huge missed opportunity to the point where, honestly, like at the presidential level, I don't give a shit who you vote for at this point. I wash my hands of it. I think the Vega campaign is really exciting because it is localized to a district like the Bronx where I knew we were going to be received very well when we went out there on the streets, and we were. I mean, he got a lot of signatures in a very short period of time as an independent who can't afford a haircut. I'm just saying because he said it. I'm not trying to rub it in, Jose. No judgment here whatsoever. But so like on that level, on a local level, when it comes to running these insurgent third-party campaigns, I'm all for that. This presidential race has been an absolute disaster, and it really revealed a lot about third parties and third-party organizing at that level.
I think what you're not accounting for is Cornell is a gangsta with an A.
Yeah.
And he's also a jazz man. So, he's jamming. He's jamming.
Yeah, sometimes I'm with the centrists, sometimes I'm with the leftists, sometimes I'm pro-war, sometimes I'm anti-war.
That's it. Yeah. This is a fugue. He's playing multiple lines, but they're harmonizing into a beautiful melody. Cornell is one of those very, very much actually like the Clintons, who would have been much better off not running for president. Running for president destroyed Clinton Inc. They had a nice grift going with that Clinton Foundation. They were raking it in. Nobody was really asking any questions. The media just praised them
they seem
for
to
all
have
their
done all right,
humanitarian work.
in fairness.
But with those greedy pricks, more is always better. Mo better for those motherfuckers. It blew up their whole thing. What did they get out of running for president? It only cost.
They got
them.
more
It
money
only
into
hurt
the
them.
Clinton Foundation.
No, they didn't.
I think they cashed
They
out.
had to close down the Clinton Foundation because they got exposed.
But you don't think the
They
fact
got
that he was
exposed.
president? Yeah, but you don't think the fact that he was president made it bigger and gave it more clout than
I'm
it
talking
would
about
had he?
Hillary.
Oh,
obviously.
Hillary.
Not-
I thought you were talking about he should have stopped at being governor. I was about to say, what are you, fucking nuts?
Yeah, no. Hillary, that blew up their shit. That made people dig into the Clinton Foundation in a way that they didn't. All the media profiles about the Clinton Foundation were very, very much like all the coverage about the Clintons. It was very focused on Bill Clinton, the great triangulator, who has solved the riddle of humanitarianism by getting all of these greedy corporations to come pitch in, and with his magnetic personality bringing out the better angels of their nature. And then people dug into it and were like, oh, it's a bribery scheme. They're bribing them so they can get arms sales from the State Department. So it didn't work out for them. And this certainly hasn't worked out for Cornell, because while you always had some people saying, Cornell's a neoliberal, he endorsed Biden, those voices were just like you always had people who said the Clinton Foundation was corrupt. Those voices were not dominant in the conversation. And now they are. Now Cornell has made a total clown of himself. He got used to going to the parties with the good crab cakes. He doesn't want to go to the parties with the Mickey D's.
Right.
He wants to still be welcomed into all of the high society functions as their pet intellectual, as their pet fall radical. And in order to do that, he has to stay cuddly and non-threatening as a Muppet. He has to be their Muppet, right? Oh, yeah, Fannie Lou Hamer. Oh, Cornell was at the party last night, and he was talking about Nora Zeal Hurston, and oh, my God, it was so inspiring, right? He's not going to get invited to those parties if they think he cost Joe Biden the election. That's it. Right. He'll get nadered. He gets cast out. That's what it's about. And you can see by who he picked for his VPs, either, deeply unserious about running for president or deeply deluded about what kind of a VP would actually add something to his ticket and not detract from it. Somebody who always did kind of try to walk that line between saying, hey, identity matters, race matters, but there's a class dimension and you can't ignore that. To pick somebody like that who just has a history of saying the most deranged anti-racism kind of things. That's somebody who I do not even want 0.5% of the vote. Like, what do you?
Well, yeah. Well, on top of that, also, she's an academic. You already have an academic on the ticket.
Right.
The point of the VP is to broaden the appeal of the ticket, not to narrow the appeal of the ticket. But in these recent New York Times polls that they just put out, he barely registered. He registered less than a point in almost all of them.
Why would he?
Yeah.
And then with Jill Stein, whenever you hear Jill Stein speaking on the issues, she's always right on. She's always right on. Off here and there about certain things, but for the most part, she's right there. And as I've said, you have to wonder: do they just let the Green Party exist so that no effective left can form?
Right.
Because as a leftist, when I listen to Jill Stein, I say, yeah, no, she's right on all of the issues. But then you look at the organization that she is the de facto leader of, and it's just a total shit show. And I got to say, I think they want it that way.
Well, yes. Well, because the effect of that is it just becomes a giant time suck, right? I mean,
Exactly.
the Green Party is just
it makes
this
it very
giant
hard
time
for
suck.
yeah, and it makes it very difficult for an organization that would be more effective to get itself established, because the Green Party is in the way, sucking up all that energy.
Exactly. All right, we're going to do our patron scroll after this next segment, but let's take some Rumble rants and super chats in the meantime. Jill Stein versus a watermelon. While both hold similar influence over Gaza policy, a watermelon at least won't make decisions to discriminate against unvaxxed Gazans. Thank you, Seaweed. Killdozer 420. Voting for Joe Biden is elder abuse. Thank you for that. Let's see. If Old Stoner, thanks for the $1. If 50% of a country is against wars, where is the anti-war candidate? If you don't have a party against the wars, then you don't have democracy. No, that's a great question. And it's a great question. And that is, I think, goes to Russell's question about, like, is the Green Party allowed to exist because it's incompetent? Because, yeah, technically you have an anti-war party in this country, but they obviously suck ass at organizing. And are they allowed to exist because they suck ass at organizing? Why is it that only 36% of Americans support what Israel is doing right now, yet the two candidates who oppose what Israel is doing right now are polling at a combined 4% on a good day? That makes no sense.
This is what I'm saying, and I mentioned before, I'm reading Tales from the Canyon. My next thing is going to be Chaos, which made quite an impression on Candace Owens recently. She tweeted about reading Chaos. I really have to ask, and you have to be careful when you start digging into these things, not to just go down the rabbit hole, not to just go start chasing unproven assertions. But yes, I become increasingly convinced when you look at what the intelligence services are doing, the way they're mobilizing around shutting down free communication, the way they're attacking the internet. What would make you think that for a very long time now, they have not been making sure that no challenge to this choiceless choice could really emerge? And that part of that effort has been, well, there's got to be some place for these, radicals to go. So yeah, let this Green Party thing happen.
Well, yeah, it's good for them, because if it's run by morons and it won't grow,
right,
then that just funnels a lot of energy there, because there's an opportunity cost to investing in the Greens cycle after cycle, which is you're not building something else. You're not realizing this is a dead end. We need something else.
That's it.
Right?
That's it. And it raises the question, what would they do if you had a real leftist? I mean, look what they did to Fred Hampton.
Right. Exactly. Abiding. Thanks for the 99-cent super sticker. Appreciate that. Jill Stein's running in a fixed primary like DNC's. Well, that's another thing. I don't know what happened. Cornell didn't want to debate, didn't want to do a primary, and now I can't imagine. Yeah, I mean, who would topple Jill Stein? There were some people who were talking about running on the Greens, who somebody asked to be on the show. I forget who he was. Ally Muda here. Thank you for the €2. Appreciate that. Democracy.
At least they stopped bothering us about who was that fucking guy, Dr. Shiva.
Oh, Dr. Shiva. Yeah,
they stopped bothering us about Dr. Shiva.
They gave up. Yes. Thank you, Dodger 12. Appreciate that. Someone must get Jose a Flowbee from a yard sale. Thank you, Snork. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go on to segment number 4. Russell, this is yours.
Okay, so Jen Psaki is the anti-disinformation queen. So I put together a short montage of some of her greatest anti-disinformation hits.
For the public health. About misinformation. We're against it. A couple of the steps that we have, that could be constructive for the public health of the country are providing for Facebook or other platforms to measure and publicly share the impact of misinformation on their platform. I don't have any comments on the laptop, but what I can tell you is that it sounds like the objective of the board is to prevent disinformation and misinformation from traveling around the country in a range of communities. I'm not sure who opposes that effort. Increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation. Well, if you are just digesting Russian misinformation and parroting Russian talking points, you are not aligned with long-standing bipartisan American values. Third, it's important to take faster action against harmful posts. As you all know, information travels quite quickly on social media platforms. Sometimes it's not accurate, and Facebook needs to move more quickly to remove harmful, violative posts.
And now for something completely different.
So apparently the anti-disinformation queen is spreading disinformation in her new memoir. So she is going to, under pressure from Axios, remove a section of her book.
First of all, before we get into this, what is she, like 39 years old? You're what? She's like what is she? Early 40s tops, I would imagine.
Probably.
So you're writing a memoir. You're a press secretary in her early 40s writing a memoir. Seems a little early for a memoir, right? Seems like you haven't really gotten to that point.
That's
yet.
not unusual for these people because it's a memoir of her time as press secretary before she cashed in on the MSNBC gig.
And how long is this book? How many pages can you squeeze out of that? Like it seems like 25 pages tops.
I always think of this line in the Woody Allen movie Hannah and Her Sisters, where I think it was Max von Sydow who was in the movie. He says, "Can you imagine the mentality of a mind that would watch wrestling?" I always think when I see things like this, can you imagine the mentality of a person who would purchase and read this book?
Yes, indeed.
Former White House press secretary Jen Psaki said on Monday that she will remove a passage from her new book, Say More, that falsely claims President Joe Biden never checked his watch during a ceremony for American troops killed during the 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan. Psaki, now an MSNBC primetime host, was spurred to act after Axios reported that her recollection that, quote, the president looked at his watch only after the ceremony had ended was contradicted by news reports and firsthand accounts from Gold Star families at the time. In what Axios described as the, quote, latest instance of current and former Biden administration officials downplaying or misrepresenting controversial episodes from the Afghanistan withdrawal, Psaki wrote in Say More that the president's critics had engaged in misinformation. Oh, they engaged in misinformation. Imagine that. By blasting him over the infamous photos of him looking at his watch. Following the horrific attack at the Abbey Gate base that left 13 soldiers dead, Biden faced intense backlash over not only the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, but also because he appeared to be inconsiderate during the dignified transfer of the troops' bodies at Dover Air Force Base. While the Associated Press snapped multiple photographs of Biden looking at his watch twice throughout the ceremony, and Gold Star families spoke on the record about the president repeatedly checking the time, Psaki insisted in her book that wasn't the case. Even if they got pictures, deny it.
Right.
Instead, she wrote, he only looked at the end of the transfer. Republicans were weaponizing the image, Psaki suggested, to make him appear insensitive, concerned only about how much time had passed. And you can just imagine that mythical person who bought this book. Goddamn Republicans!
Yeah.
You believe the one they don't even have any respect for the dead soldiers, the Republicans.
Additionally, as Axios reported, Psaki cited the wrong fact check to bolster her case. That's quite a crackerjack journalist they snatched up at MSNBC, huh?
Yeah.
Though quoting from a USA Today article, she claimed the Washington Post noted that Biden looked at his watch at the end of the ceremony. The article she cited, however, also concluded that, quote, photos and video show Biden also checked his watch during the ceremony. Psaki, who now considers herself a TV journalist, that's pretty snarky coming from the Daily Beast.
Yes.
Initially declined to comment. Whoever wrote this, Psaki must have fucked their boyfriend or something. Psaki, who now considers herself a TV journalist now, initially declined to comment when Axios first published its story. After publication, though, she reached back out and told Axios that the, quote, you want to talk about passive aggressive, detail in a few lines of the book about the exact number of times he looked at his watch will be removed in future reprints and the ebook.
Oh, I already printed the book. Oy.
Oh, we're going to take out those lines that you're making an issue about. I wasn't intentionally misleading anybody. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, but fine, I'll take it out. Fine. The White House declined to comment to Axios. Psaki also said that the, quote, story on Afghanistan is really about the importance of delivering feedback, even when it is difficult, told through my own experience of telling President Biden that his own story of loss was not well received by the families who were grieving their sons and daughters. Okay, so if that's what it was about, why did you lie? Why did you lie? Yeah, she's a reasonably smart person. I at least she reads that way. I can't believe she didn't know she was lying at the time. She went back, as you saw in that montage. That's kind of her beat, accusing people of spreading disinformation and then using that as a pretext for censorship, which, of course, is a fate she is not going to face for spreading disinformation about this incident. Elsewhere in Say More, she stated that Biden was left speechless by the criticism he'd received from Gold Star families because he had spent ample time talking with them about the loss of his own son, Beau. Yeah, you know, before my other son started fucking his wife, my son Beau he was a very brave soldier himself, you know.
Yeah.
Joining the left-leaning cable news network directly from the White House in 2022, Psaki soon scored her own Sunday MSNBC talk show. In late 2023, she also became the primetime lead-in to star anchor Rachel Maddow, who now only hosts on Monday nights. Okay, so the reason I thought this story was important was particularly because it follows right on the heels of that absolutely batshit Hillary appearance on Morning Joe, where they spend a lot of time talking about misinformation on the platforms, very much as you see, as Psaki did when she was press secretary, and not that I have ever deigned to watch her dumpster fire of a show, but I'm sure she does similar kind of segments on there. This is what they mean by stopping disinformation. What they mean is they don't want Axios to publish stories like that about them. If they had their way, they could just lie about an incident, blame their political opponents for any embarrassing story that might have emerged, and not be challenged by it. These people are extremely fucking dangerous. As much as this may seem, oh, it's trivial, she lied and got caught in a book. It's not trivial, because these people have real power. These people have real power, and they are really trying to stop the conversation about what they're actually doing, from trivial matters like this, Joe Biden checking his watch, to matters like, the COOF, which is mainly what those clips I pulled were focused on. And what's even more dangerous are the brainwashed MSNBC zombies who actually defend these people and vote to keep these people in power. It is very, very dangerous. This is the woman who all through the coof was telling you, and you can see, I mean, it's funny that the Twitter files are controversial because I forgot about this. And frankly, during COVID, I was not sitting there hanging on the White House's every word the way some people were. So I didn't even see a lot of this. She says straight out, yes, we're contacting Facebook. We're working with Facebook. These social media platforms have to be more careful about what's on their platform, and we're having discussions with them. There was a whole thing that Peter Doocy brought out and challenged her on that, there were 12 specific people that they were claiming were spreading disinformation. He asked, do these people know that you're spying on them? Are they aware of that? These people are really dangerous. If they have their way, you are not going to be able to in any way challenge any government narrative without being thrown off social media. And if they have their way, they'll go full trucker protest. You'll get debanked. You'll get shut out of the financial system. This is a very good example of what they're talking about when they say misinformation. They're not talking about actual misinformation. They're talking about challenging their narrative. They don't actually care about what's true. If they did, they wouldn't lie as much as they do.
Well, right. Most recently, Joe Scarborough just tweeted out that the UN had cut in half their estimated number of women and children in Gaza killed, which was not what they did. They transferred some of the death count from identified deaths to reported deaths because they were not able to identify the bodies. And so Morning Joe, I don't know, has he corrected this? Aaron Mate fact-checked him on this, as has the UN itself. They came out and said, no, we're not saying we overcounted total dead. We just overcounted identified dead and moved them into reported dead. Death count is still the same. Morning Joe takes that as license to go out and say, see, the numbers are wrong. Israel's being more careful than we originally thought. Do they want Twitter to be able to fact check them on that? No, that's what they mean by cracking down on disinformation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They want, their idea of cracking down on disinformation is throwing Aaron off Twitter.
Right.
It's not challenging the actual disinformation.
Exactly. All right, folks, we are going to take a little game break here while we pause to thank our sponsors. A word from our sponsors, and by sponsors we mean our Patreon supporters, our paid Substack supporters, and our local supporters. That's right. So you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and help keep this show going. Your support is what allows us to be on full-time now, 4 shows per week. You could sign up for as little as $5 a month over on Patreon. You get your name up in lights here on the show notes. You also get call-in access to our weekly post-show Q&As over on Rumble. Those are every Sunday night. And you get 2 supporter streams, exclusive supporter shows per month. We're going to be scheduling those for May pretty shortly. So you get 2 bonus shows per month, and you also get streaming access to our live show in New York City. So if you want to be a part of that live show, both performances, 2 p.m. and 7 p.m., are now sold out. So the doors are closed on the event itself, but you can still watch live on your tablet, computer, TV, smartphone, whatever you got, by becoming a member. So that's patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals, DoDissidents.locals.com. If you are watching on Rumble right now, where 2,451 of you are watching over on Rumble right now, you can click that join button right underneath the screen, and that takes you to our locals, where for as little as $5 a month, you get all the perks that we just mentioned. Perks are the same across Patreon, Substack, and locals. Thank you all, as always, very much for your support, the backbone of the program. DC says Phil Oakes was assaulted in Tanzania in 1973, likely by CIA grunts, resulting in damaged vocal cords and possible brain damage, driving him to suicide. Interesting. RFK could have been his backup singer. They could have done 2-part harmony. That'd have been a duo.
That's awful.
Allegedly. Thanks, DC. Lars and Ruin, thanks for the 99 cents. Appreciate that. What was somebody tweeted out. What the fuck was that? Oh, man. I forget because RFK said something about how a worm ate his brain or ate a part of his brain, ate a hole through his head. Said a congressman tweeted this out, a Republican congressman, like a holder of national office, and he got a lot of shit for it, but I thought it was darkly funny but a sick burn. He says, you either die a Kennedy with a hole in your brain or live long enough to be a Kennedy with a hole in your brain. That's a sick fucking burn from a Republican congressman. Like, I'm sorry, man. That guy's got game. People gave him shit for that. I'm like, no, that shit is funny. It's dark, but it's funny.
Yes.
I mean, that is good wordsmith.
Well, this is just further evidence that we're living in topsy-turvy land where the people on the right are the funny ones.
Yeah, they have the jokes. I mean, that was a banger.
Jokes.
Yes. China Shill probably knows what I'm talking about. Banger tweet. Yeah, that was a killer tweet. That was hilarious. I almost retweeted that. Just be like, hey, I know people think this is mean, and it is, but it was funny. No doubt about that.
I'm with Steve Martin on that. Comedy is not pretty.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Dr. Steins, this is from, I forgot. Okay, this is from Seaweed. For some reason, the screen name didn't copy over on a few of these. Dr. Steins, right to question which is better, Dr. West running in a corporate fascist party or a sludge no labels party. It is funny for Joe to be running as a fascist while pointing it out, though. Thank you, Seaweed. Russ, I highly recommend Chaos by Tom O'Neill. Okay, yep. So we're one step ahead of you on that. Yep, very well researched.
It's literally off camera to my right.
There you go. Yep. Yeah, Candace Owens has been tweeting about that quite a bit. But yes, we got you on there. Okay.
I literally have Anya's book going right now because we are going and covering the book launch tomorrow. That's the Royal We as a show.
We as a program. That's right.
As a program, which means me.
Which means Russell, the New Yorker.
Keaton has other responsibilities. Yeah. And he doesn't live here.
And I don't live there. That's right.
So I'm reading that, and I'm reading the Tales from the Canyon, kind of back to back.
Ken Minji, Cornell, my dear sister Stein, why can't you show some moral courage like my brother Navalny? Thank you. Yes, indeed. Fitz, I can't pronounce that, but part of greatness of chaos is the epic tragedy of author falling in the rabbit hole. Most chaos docs destroyed. Thank you, Fitz. Bloated scrotum. Does Jen Psaki count as filth? Fascist? Like to fuck. There you go. If that helps you, go ahead. Here we go. Let's see. Start. Gabby, thanks for the $3. Appreciate that very much.
I mean, gingers all look good if you dress them up as a goth.
Yeah, there you go. Well, some of her makeup looks a little gothy too, because the pale makeup.
Yeah, if you give them like the black lipstick and the leather bustier, they all look good in those outfits.
Right. Okay. Let's see here.
Fashion tip for Jen Psaki for her show.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's go on to segment number 5 here. Jerry Seinfeld's been in the news a little bit lately. He was given an honorary degree from Duke University, where he also gave the commencement speech. Duke students walk out of Jerry Seinfeld's commencement speech, amid wave of graduation anti-war protests. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld was met with a wave of boos Sunday when students at Duke University in North Carolina walked out just before his commencement speech, the latest in a wave of anti-war protests at college graduations across the country this weekend. Not only was Seinfeld 70 delivering the speech at the school's football stadium, but he was also receiving an honorary degree from the school where his son is enrolled and from which his daughter graduated. As he was being introduced, boos could be heard on the official commencement live stream, which we'll get to in a second. We're excited and delighted for the class of 2024 and their families. We understand the depth of feeling in our community, and as we have all year, we respect the right of everyone at Duke to express their views peacefully without preventing graduates and their families from celebrating their achievement, Duke spokesperson Frank Tramble said in a statement after this event. So we got a little split screen here. We have a video from the official commencement live stream, which syncs perfectly
Jerry is
with
also
the walkout.
serving as our commencement speaker today.
you go. There's some walkouts.
So, what's the big deal about our commencement speaker?
What are they booing? The fact that the women and children being killed? Oh,
So-
right, that. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, they're a little upset about that. Oh, I got it. I'll stand here and smile until they go away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, what's the big deal about our commencement speaker? Aside from the fact that we're perhaps all wondering whether he's wearing a puffy shirt under this gown.
What a joke, get it? Like in the show, he wore a puffy shirt. That would look silly. That would look silly. Unlike us now, we all look like we're about to run train on a dead goat. This isn't a silly ceremony at all. No. What an unfunny, unoriginal joke from an untalented, unremarkable midwit presiding over a very cult-like ceremony here with this speaker. Good on the kids who walked out.
Let me explain. Jerry is a comedian, actor, writer, producer, director, yada, yada,
Fan
yada.
of the
In
playground.
short, he is a true cultural icon.
All right. That is one demonstration.
Do you
against
see him
Jerry
hanging
Seinfeld.
around your daughter's high school? He's there to help with remedial reading classes.
Yeah.
There's nothing untoward about it.
Emerson College in Boston also had protests at its commencement Sunday. Some students ditched their graduation gowns, leaving them on stage after they collected diplomas, while others emblazoned their graduation caps with Free Palestine. A student shouted Free Palestine while accepting a diploma, and another crossed the stage with raised hands, Free Gaza, written across their palms. Some students showed off Palestinian flags as they crossed the stage, and a number of graduates donned keffiyehs with their graduation garb. Throughout the ceremony, speakers had to take long pauses during their speeches or speak loudly over chanting students. So we have here some footage from the Emerson ceremony. Some of the flags. A lot of kids had keffiyehs on over the gowns. Some of them lowered the gown so people could see them as they went across the stage. Some people incorporating that into their graduation wear.
Alex Elliott Astort Fabra. Sophie D. Beers Arthur. Catherine Roderick. Maxwell James Cooper. David Martin Estabus.
There you go. So lots of disruptions there at Emerson. At the Virginia Commonwealth University ceremony on Saturday, students walked out of Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin's commencement address. Though the school said disruptions would not be tolerated, the VCU chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine organized the silent walkout in protest of Youngkin's policies as well as his role in the arrests of pro-Palestinian student protesters last month. So here they are at UCV or UVC, whatever they call it.
Graduates,
This was a pretty big
what a
walkout.
distinct privilege it is to join you this morning to honor and congratulate the class of 20.
And this was actually more coordinated. A lot of high school students staged walkouts against Youngkin as well. So that's a pretty big one, as you can see. That's quite a few. Yep. Based, no doubt. Protests also erupted at different ceremonies at the University of California, Berkeley on Friday and Saturday. During Friday's law school graduation, students removed their gowns to reveal white shirts that read, "UC Divest." The school addressed the protest in a statement that said graduation was able to continue regardless. The next day, chants of Free Palestine erupted as the student speaker tried to deliver her address at a different ceremony. A group of about 20 students stood up and waved Palestinian flags as well, the San Francisco Chronicle reported. About 300 others stood up and moved to a different area of the venue, according to the Chronicle, as counter-protesters chanted, "Kick them out." So here's some of the proceedings at UC Berkeley. So there's the UC divest sign.
Carol Christ, what do you say? Carol Christ, what do you say? How many kids have you killed today? How many kids have you killed today? Free Palestine! 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 End the occupation now! End the occupation now! End the occupation now! End the occupation now! Carol Christ, you can't hide!
That's a huge school. Look at that.
You're committing genocide! You're committing genocide! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go! Hey, hey!
So, it's kind of humbling when you see that crowd of kids there, as much as you're rooting them on. Then you look at that huge sea of people who's not joining them, right? It's like, oh, man.
Yep.
Deck is still stacked against us, is it not? But good on them, man. It's great to see, especially the walkouts. I love just the vote of no confidence, because ultimately, this is about building a new system after this one inevitably just undoes itself. And so we need to build a new economic order with new rules. And the fact that you have so many kids on what is, I'm sure a lot of these kids look forward to this day for a long time as a very important rite of passage into the system. Now they are treating it the exact opposite way by walking out of the ceremony. And so, of course, they didn't do it in the kind of numbers we hoped they would. But the fact that you're seeing this at all, this didn't happen at all during the Iraq War protests. I went to school during the Iraq War. I was in high school in the run-up to the Iraq War. I would have definitely known about it if kids were walking out en masse at schools throughout the country. I don't think one college protest made national news at that time. So this is different. It's much different. It has a much different feel. The numbers are much larger in terms of people who are tapped into what's going on. And despite the fact that, in a huge stadium like this, it's easy to get discouraged and say, oh, look at all the people who are just watching, doing nothing. This is a lot more than we had when I was growing up, a lot more than we had in the early mid-2000s. And so the kids are all right, moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Remember, any kind of counter cultural movement, any kind of challenge to an established order, it's always a minority.
Of course.
Most people keep their heads down in any age, in any circumstances. I don't know if we have numbers on this, but as bad as things were in aristocratic France, I guarantee you it was a minority of the population that was involved in the revolution.
Sure. Yeah.
It's always a minority. So that doesn't mean anything, because when you have a dedicated minority, they can move everybody else, because everybody else, they're all non-player characters. They just go with whatever's happening. These are the people who are actually in the arena moving society. That having been said, the scum of the earth, we haven't gotten to this story because there's so much to cover. They're suing protesters. You have these Israelis who are suing protesters now. So what's the purpose of that? To intimidate people. To force them the expense of having to hire a defense lawyer to deal with this. They're trying to intimidate people. And I got to say, once again, oh, we need Israel because of anti-Semitism. Motherfuckers, I cannot imagine what more you could do to reinforce anti-Semitic stereotypes than start suing people for protesting against your fucking apartheid state. Oh, thanks, Israel. Thank you very much. As a Jew, I really appreciate you not reinforcing stereotypes of Jews as litigious people who file unreasonable suits.
Yeah. Yeah. And, also the thing you have to keep in mind, because that's a good point on that score, but it's also, I think, an important point when you're talking about the size and scope of these protests. The kids who are still doing this are the kids who have withstood round after round, wave after wave of intimidation, not just legal threats in terms of lawsuits. They've been smeared in the media nonstop. They've been beaten up by the cops, right? That's why they wear the masks on their face.
I've never heard of such a thing. I have never heard of such a thing, of suing protesters for protesting from a foreign country. A foreign country. I've never heard of that.
Right. Exactly. So they got masks on their face because they don't want to be identified, not just because maybe an employer will put them on a blacklist, but they don't want their friend to see them on the local news or a family member to see them on TV because there's stigma attached with that. Why? Because they've been smeared in the media. And so, we expected that these commencement weekends would be met with protests. This is just the first of a few. Obviously, not every commencement it happens on the same weekend, so there will probably be more this upcoming weekend. And then Memorial Day, that's kind of the big one. That's when a lot of campuses have them. In fact, Joe Biden is speaking at a commencement address in Georgia either later this month or early next month. So that is the one that all eyes are on in terms of who's going to say what there, because there will definitely be protests there, sure as we're sitting here. Yeah. All right, we got one more segment, but let's take a couple of super chats first here. Your post displeases us, Mr. Bond. Joe Scarborough, thank you. Great work, fellas, says Sparky. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that very much. Courage and integrity are always in the minority, says Philip Blair. Thank you, Philip. Appreciate that. Nocturnal Human. I'm voting for Stein because she's the only anti-genocide candidate. Pardon me. You can't win if you never try. It's worth showing support against genocide.
We're not telling people not to.
No,
we're
not at all.
We're not taking a position against her.
Yep. No, not at all. Out on, lads, is the term Zog inextricably linked to white racist? I find it punchy and sort of like it, but it is beyond a pale.
Frankly, yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that's an example of, like, there's enough public knowledge about the influence of the Israel lobby on our politics where, like, you don't need to create a cartoonish scenario underneath that. Right. So yes, I do think so. Bloated Scrotum, you said earlier Catholics had no humor, but the best meat a priest can eat on Friday is a nun. Thank you, Bloated Scrotum. That's not bad. Not bad for a goy.
I never said Catholics didn't have humor.
No, Catholics have a good sense of humor.
Yeah, the Irish in particular.
Yep, indeed.
And
Jerry
actually,
Seinfeld.
the Italians have a very unique sense of humor.
Yes, that's true. I thought this college graduation was about nothing. Hey, I thought this college graduation was about nothing. You know what was frustrating about that is that his speech, because I watched the whole speech to see if there would be any other protests. His speech was actually good. Like, I do like his like he said a lot of interesting things about AI and work. He said, AI takes the effort out of work. You're taking the human experience out of a human experience, and he said something to the effect of, the luckiest kids in the audience today are the kids who don't know what they're going to do with their lives. If you're 22 and you're sitting here thinking you have everything figured out, you're the unlucky ones. The lucky ones are the ones who are lost. So, like, this is part of why I love his show, because I think there's a lot of philosophy under Seinfeld that is actually speaks to, like, the human condition in a way that really made that show transcendent. Unfortunately, big time fucking asshole.
I will say this. I have really enjoyed seeing you stick your neck out this far on a cultural touchstone, because I get to read the comments where everyone's attacking you for liking Seinfeld.
For liking the show. Listen, I can't take that away from the guy. I mean, I'm as upset as anybody about his politics. But,
no. You have people who really hate that show.
Well,
Not because of his politics. They hate that show.
They hate the show? Well,
yeah.
You know, what are you going to do?
Look, listen, man, I've told you this before. The positions I have taken on films have gotten more people in their feelings than anything I've ever said about politics.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, no, look, that show is a masterpiece. No getting around that. Same with the American Revolution.
Okay, now you said that.
All right, I'll
keep an eye on the comments. For
all right,
stream.
I'll take a look. Same with the American Revolution, War for Independence, a majority weren't activists. That's right. Thank you. All right, we got one more piece. This is a quick one. Feel-good story, folks. I mean, the graduation story was kind of a feel-good story as well, but so is this one here.
Our old friend Token McGinty.
Yes. Historically black Louisiana College becomes second school to cancel UN ambassador's address amid Gaza protests. Xavier University of Louisiana, a historically black college in New Orleans, became the second school to cancel United Nations Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield's address amid the students' Gaza protests. The institution reversed course on its choice of a commencement speaker after pressure from students and the community over Thomas Greenfield's voting record at the UN. University President Reynald Verrett announced the news in a Wednesday email. Everyone's goal is to have a commencement ceremony that appropriately honors the graduates and their achievements, Verrett wrote in the email. The vast majority of students want to be able to enjoy a commencement ceremony free of disruptions. Therefore, we will not be moving forward with the commencement speaker as originally planned. Win. Big victory. They're like, you know what? This is the pro-genocide woman who goes and vetoes ceasefire resolutions. This is going to be an issue. Why don't we make the day pleasant and just cancel her invitation? That's a big victory. The school initially revealed that Thomas Greenfield will be the commencement speaker last Sunday. Following the Sunday news of the speaker lineup, nearly 1,800 people signed a petition demanding a new commencement speaker. Ambassador Thomas Greenfield has repeatedly voted against the ceasefire in Gaza, resulting in the decimation of all 13 universities in Gaza, the loss of over 30,000 lives with thousands more remaining in the rubble from violence, and the continuation of the genocide in Gaza, the petition says. Palestinians in Gaza draw upon the experiences of their brothers and sisters in America during the segregation era. The student-led petition asked the university to bring a commencement speaker that represents the school's mission statement and to end the politicization of our commencement ceremony. It is the second school. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is a great story. It is the second school after the University of Vermont. I'm assuming that is not an HBCU. Not many of them up there, I don't think, to make the decision. Suresh Garamella, UVM's president, announced the decision in an email to the university community. It is with great regret that I share that our planned speaker, Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, will not be joining us to deliver the commencement address, Garamella said in the email. Pro-Palestinian protesters on university campuses across the country have shown their displeasure with President Biden and his administration's handling of the Israel-Hamas war and the humanitarian crisis impacting Palestinians in Gaza. So that's a win. That's a win. That is students, especially at the HBCU, saying, look, just because you trot out a black woman as a token to do the dirty work of a white settler colonial project that walks our government like a dog doesn't mean we're going to celebrate her for her quote-unquote standing in the world. She has no standing in our eyes. Fuck her. Get her out. Great job. And really, I mean, it's great that they were able to influence the university, which doesn't sound like the university leadership was making a politically motivated decision. They just said, look, we don't want this to be an issue. We want the graduates to be able to enjoy the day. This is too divisive because 1,800 students signed the letter saying they don't want her here. So we're just going to cancel her. That's how it works. That's how it works. That's a win. And that shows you, like, some universities have actually handled these protests well. Brown University, what did they do? Did they call the cops to crack their heads? No, they said, we'll hold a vote on divestment in October. And the students said, okay, right?
Right.
Did this HBCU call the cops on the kids? Did they smear the kids? Did they, how dare you, demand that this, very accomplished, woman of color, no, they said, all right, this is an issue. We're going to make it so it's not an issue anymore, because that would have been a graduation ceremony rife with protest, as it should have been had she been invited to speak there.
Yeah, frankly, as you point out, the University of Vermont is certainly not an HBCU. But with the other one, I think it would be very hard for the administration to argue with their African American student body that they have to swallow a speaker who has been representing the U.S.'s support for an apartheid state. How do you make that argument in particular in that place with that student body? As far as she goes, I mean, she's just a disgrace, and she's an example of the difficult position I think people who are not straight white men are in terms of expressing anti-establishment views. Some people, if you remember, used to come at us about that during the Hillary Bernie wars.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she can't say the things he says because a woman can't. Now, there have been brave women in politics like Barbara Lee, who voted against the Iraq War, who still has her seat today. But what did they do when she wanted to run for the Senate?
Yep.
Right?
8 points.
Right. So
in liberal California.
Yeah, they weren't going to let her rise any higher than that. So I do think the result of that is the absolute worst people to represent their groups, non-straight white male groups. Those are the ones who rise to the top. Those are the ones who are able to get ahead in that system, because the system only sees them as useful as a black face on these racist policies, or brown, or what have you. That's certainly what Kamala was. I mean, Kamala was, her as AG, she argued for keeping prisoners because they needed the labor
to fight fires for $1 a day or whatever it was.
To fight fire. Fought against releasing somebody who was pretty well proven innocent by DNA testing. They love people like Kamala. They love people like Kamala so they can say, what do you mean our policies are racist? Kamala is for it, right? Same thing with this. Like, why do you think they have this woman at this time representing the U.S. at the UN? But it certainly doesn't represent that community. As we saw when we went to the Bronx, start talking to people. Richie Torres doesn't represent that community.
Right.
But those are the people who get elevated by the establishment. They love people like this.
Not only that,
the students were not having it.
The crackdown on truly dissident non-white voices is extremely brutal, shall we say. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, right? I mean, that creates a chilling effect of sorts. So, the system always filters the worst people to the top, and I see what you're saying, how it is probably doubly true in cases like this, and, that's why it's important that we have some sort of institutional power. Like this is a perfect example, going back to the Jill Stein segment, of why it's important to build those institutions that we did not have in 2016, so that you can support candidates, whatever color they are, whatever gender they are, who are the real deal. And when you don't have that, you don't have a power base to get beyond 3-4 points in the polls, even when the public is totally on your side. Not totally on your side, but 65% on your side. If you don't have those institutions there to actually bolster your candidacy and catapult you into the mainstream, where now not only do you have institutions that are ready to endorse you and get their members involved, that comes with fundraising bases, that comes with volunteer bases. That's the starting point from which you build off of. And when those institutions are not strong, when they are jokes, quite frankly, like the Greens, it makes it much more difficult to get anything like that going. And that's how you get to a point where in 2024, you have a once-in-a-century horror going on. 65% of the people want it to stop. None of the viable candidates for the highest office in the land 6 months out have any interest in putting this to an end.
Right. Well, they who was it who said if voting made a difference, they'd make it illegal?
Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't let you do it.
And building on what I was saying before, we don't talk about this a lot with the gay community. It's almost completely forgotten now. If you look at that Stonewall generation of gays, they had economics. A lot of these guys were like radical Marxists.
Right.
And they completely suppressed that, wrote it out of the history, hid it, and that's how you wind up with Pete Buttigieg representing that community.
Yep, indeed. EJ, imagine a Columbia student wore zip ties and ripped up her award. Wow, good for her.
Oh, wow, really?
Wow.
Really?
I'm surprised that video's not out there.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Seinfeld without Larry David is like Gervais without Stephen Merchant.
Okay, that was where I got some blowback because I think the show sucked after Larry David left, and a lot of people felt differently.
I don't think it sucked. Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It had a little bit of a different character to it, but I think by then the ethos of the show was well enough established. I think the characters were well enough established, to the point where it could kind of write itself. It could kind of write itself. I think they made those shows work. I mean, they were more cartoonish, like the Kenny Rogers roaster or Kramer's apartment turns red. You know what I mean? Like all that shit.
This is what I'm going to tell you. Having been like a fully functioning adult at the time that change happened, a lot of people stopped watching it. Mm-hmm. Like they took a look at that and were like, it's not the same show.
Yeah. See, I think
which is why it ended not long after that.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people did not like it after Larry David left. Now today, people might watch it in hindsight and they might like it in reruns. They don't feel that way. But at the time when that change happened, it was so obvious and palpable that a lot of fans of the show stopped watching it. Myself, obviously, among them.
Well, it's funny because
I was not alone.
I mean, when you have one new episode a week, the stakes are a lot higher than when you're just watching it on streaming.
When you're just binging it.
When it's like appointment TV, okay, whatever,
right.
Tuesday at 8, I have to be here. You're going to scrutinize that content a lot more than if you're just streaming something, right?
That's what I'm saying. I think people who didn't watch it that way, it's probably not as jarring as it was for people who had been watching it for years in that format.
Right. Giving explanations of why one is wearing masks now associated with division and exclusion distracts from the cause. Fair or not, it's a reality that should be dealt with given the cause's importance. Well, it doesn't create a distraction. They're obviously wearing masks because they're being blacklisted by the university and by employers. Like, I don't know why that's difficult to understand. It's a pretty straightforward explanation. Like, I don't see why it has to be divisive. It's only divisive if you make it divisive. Like, given that fact, how is it divisive? Right.
And being here, that's why I said as soon as the young lady, and I brought it up to Jimmy because she asked me to. The young lady approached me at Jose's event and told me, could you tell Jimmy that we're not wearing the mask for that reason? And it clicked, and I was like, yeah, I live amongst these people, and I don't see a bunch of young tech workers wearing masks. I don't see that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see the college students all going around with masks.
Right.
So it adds up.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially now you start talking, you got Kevin O'Leary. We're going to use AI to see who you are. Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Alexandra Petrique. Plus, I'm sure well, never mind. Alexander Petrique, much love from Ireland, lads. Thank you. I was going to say the Zionist infiltrators where they cover their whole face. Remember Max Blumenthal? Like, you can't even see that person's eyes.
October 7th, 1,000 times.
Yeah, exactly. Cynthia Hall, thanks for the $5 super sticker. Appreciate that very much. And Bloated Scrotum says, okay, I can't read that one, but thank you. That's why you're on Rumble. All right. All righty, guys. Very good. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you. We will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Rumble Day. We are on Rumble tomorrow with Chairman Omali Yeshitela from the Uhuru movement. He is going to be our guest for the first about 45 minutes of the show tomorrow. So we are very excited and honored to welcome him to the program tomorrow afternoon. So make sure you tune in. Make sure you are subscribed on Rumble. If you're over there, hit that follow button right now. And everybody else, make sure you head over there and do the same. A similar thing happened to the Boondogs when Aaron Magruder left. Thank you, Sparky. Not as familiar with that, but appreciate that. All right, everybody, that's our show today. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to our special guest, Jose Vega, and congratulations on getting on the ballot in November. Fun one today. We talked a little more electoral. We haven't really talked any election stuff in a while, I feel like. We got a little more into that this afternoon. It's been a while. All right.
Horse race is heating up.
Exactly. All right, guys, thank you very much for this afternoon. Appreciate you being here. We will see you tomorrow on Rumble, 2 p.m. Eastern with guest Omali Yeshitela. Until then, please do be safe. To be treated well, work for anti-Zionist. Check. Thank you, Philip Blair. Got that in right under the wire. Thanks, everybody, for today. Until tomorrow, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.